Unlike the usual style of launching a single smartphone per year, this year Google decided to launch two Nexus smartphones. The 6P is the flagship smartphone of the two, while the Nexus 5X, which we reviewed earlier, proved to be a phone with good value for money. Despite previous Nexus phones trying their best to replace or provide alternatives to flagships, they have always failed and given a subpar experience in some categories. The Motorola Nexus 6 was probably one of the boldest moves in the Nexus lineup, and while it did tick many of the right boxes, it too fell short on becoming a suitable alternative to many products. Many people simply got it for the stock Android experience. With the 6P, however, it seems that there are several things to make you want to buy the phone other than the stock Android experience alone. How does it perform in real life though? Hi guys, this is Sandeep from Phone Arena and this is the review of the Google Nexus 6P. Up front, the Google Nexus 5X and the 6P look nearly identical. In fact, the 6P itself is not much of a departure from the Nexus 6 design, but what changes is the aspect ratio. The Nexus 6 has a wider design that was tough to handle, and the 6-inch screen only made matters worse. The 6P, on the other hand, has a smaller 5.7-inch display but is taller than the Nexus 6. As a result, the 6P is much easier to handle and use. While it isn't the smallest phablet out there, and not even the smallest 5.7-inch handset in the market, the handset feels easy enough to handle for a device of its size. It is heavy at 178 grams, but the weight is well distributed over the surface area, so it doesn't really affect your use practically. Also, the phone has a slim waistline at 7.3 mm despite having a larger footprint. The curved edges at the back also make it easier to grip. The build quality is solid and even more surprising considering that it was made by Huawei, a Chinese manufacturer. I would go as far to say that this is the best built and designed Nexus smartphone ever. Metal and glass have been seamlessly integrated to give a nice premium feel that gives the impression that it costs more than it does. The matte finish at the back provides good grip and does a good job at keeping most fingerprints at bay. The front is dominated by the 5.7-inch display, and while the bezels are still big at the top and bottom, they have done good to reduce the bezels on the sides at least. There are stereo speakers both above and below the displays as well as the usual set of proximity and ambient light sensors plus the front facing camera above the display. The speaker at the top also doubles up as the earpiece. On the right side we have the power button and the volume rocker button. These two are made of metal and are sufficiently raised from the body, offering good feedback. The positioning too is spot on and the controls are easy to reach. At the left side there is only a slot for the single nano SIM tray. The top houses the 3.5mm audio jack while you'll find the USB Type-C port at the bottom. The first thing you notice at the back is the camera module. The entire camera unit along with the dual-tone LED flash and laser autofocus are housed within a glass frame that is raised from the rest of the body. Below the camera unit is the secondary microphone, and below that is the fingerprint sensor which is depressed into the body, and then you have an Nexus branding as well. The bottom portion features a plastic cutout to facilitate better cellular and wireless reception. The same has been achieved at the top using the glass for the camera unit. Overall, it's a very elegant design that we quite admire. It handles well, feels good, and oozes premium. The 6P is available in graphite, silver, and gold variants. The 6P houses a 5.7-inch AMOLED panel with a resolution of 1440p. The display offers really good brightness, contrast, and sharpness. The sunlight legibility too is quite good owing to the less reflective display. The display isn't as bright as the Galaxy Note 5 even though the 6P uses a Samsung source display, but it is still quite good enough for any environment. The lowest brightness levels also make it comfortable to read when you are in complete darkness. The colors too are pretty good but are a bit more saturated than normal. The notification light is located at the top unlike the 5X which had it housed within the speaker below the display. The glass for protection is Corning Gorilla Glass 4 which does a good job at keeping the device protected from scratches. Like the fingerprint sensor on the Nexus 5X, the 6P2 has a blazing fast fingerprint sensor which is as fast if not faster than the 5X. But is more comfortable to use and position your finger since the dimple is deeper. It's also more accurate and works even if your fingertips or the sensor is a bit wet. All the user has to do is place their finger on the sensor and it'll unlock the device without you even having to wake it up. You could also wake the device up first by pressing the power button and then placing your finger on the sensor. The software is probably the most important aspect of any Nexus smartphone, and the 6P is no different as it runs on the latest version of Google Android, which is Marshmallow. Being Marshmallow, you can see many of the new features and changes from Lollipop, such as Doze and app permissions. Doze allows the phone to go into a deeper state of sleep than previously capable. You can also now reset just your network settings without having to reset the entire device itself. The Google Nexus 6P features a single SIM slot that is 4G LTE capable. It takes a single nano SIM and supports both Band 3 and Band 40 LTE bands in India. As with most Nexus devices, the 6P too lacks a micro SD card slot, but it makes up for it in terms of storage variants. The 6P comes in 32, 64, and 128GB capacities, although the 128GB version is not available everywhere. The Nexus 6P has a USB Type-C port that takes a reversible connector. No more hassles trying to find the right way up or down. Huawei luckily provides both a Type-C to Type-C cable as well as a Type-A to Type-C cable in the box. Thus, owners of the 6P won't have any issues transferring content from their PC to the smartphone or vice versa. The 6P also has dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11 AC and Bluetooth 4.2. The Type-C port can also be used to charge other devices and also function as a MIDI input. The 6P is powered by version 2.1 of the octa-core Snapdragon 810 chipset and has 3GB of RAM as well. Out of 3GB of RAM, the phone has a total of 2.6GB of memory, and the phone uses around 1.5GB of memory when just the default apps are running in the background. The phone performs flawlessly without any lag or hanging. The camera on the Nexus 6P is identical to the one featured on the 5X in terms of hardware specifications. However, there is still a slight difference in terms of image quality and the camera's capabilities. Whatever the Nexus 5X can do, the 6P can do better, be it low light capture, shutter speeds, or focusing speeds. This is mainly due to the 6P having more powerful processor. The camera is a 12.3 megapixel unit with a maximum aperture of f2.2 and a dual tone LED flash. There's a laser autofocus as well that helps to lock focus on objects faster. In terms of image quality, the phone does really well. Images are bright, well detailed, and have good color. White balance too is spot on, and the laser autofocus is quite fast to lock onto a subject. However, we have seen phones with faster AF even without laser assist. Sometimes the AF does hunt a bit, especially on tiny objects or subjects in the frame. The camera has a maximum aperture of 2.0, which can take images with really good bokeh when focused up close. The dynamic range is pretty good too, but sometimes the highlights are blown out of proportion, and this can be solved using the HDR Plus mode. Low light shots do a good job at keeping the noise in check. As the light reduces, there is a gradual increase in the noise levels, but nothing alarming, and is one of the best we have seen perform in low light. The phone also has a dual tone LED flash that is really powerful. Thanks to a dual tone, it captures skin tone much better as opposed to a single tone flash color. The flash also doubles up as a really capable flashlight. The shutter speed is fast enough in most conditions to eliminate shakes, but the lack of OIS definitely affects videos. Videos shot on the Nexus 6P are really detailed and have good color as well, but unfortunately there is no optical image stabilization to keep the video stable. As a result, every movement looks too sudden and jagged, sort of like a jelly or jello effect, which is a shame since we can only imagine how good the videos would have looked with optical image stabilization as well. Sony and Motorola have mastered the art of software stabilization for videos, and we feel that Google can learn a thing or two from them. The Nexus 6P can record videos at a maximum resolution of 4K at 30 fps and 720p slow motion videos at 240 fps. The front camera is different from the one on the 5X however, and on the 6P you get an 8 megapixel f2.4 unit that is capable of recording 1080p videos at 30 fps. The battery on the Nexus 6P is a 3450 mAh that is non-removable. The Nexus 6P scored a one charge rating of 13 hours and 18 minutes in our battery test. The battery on the Nexus 6P is probably the best on any Nexus device so far, and it does a really good job at keeping the battery consumption to a minimum, especially when the device is on standby. However, when in use, the phone doesn't perform as well as say the Note 5, and as a result falls just short in our battery test. When the 6P does run out of juice, the battery can be recharged quite quickly as the device supports quick charging. Like with most smartphones that Google releases every year, I had my reservations about the Nexus 6P too, but I'm glad to say that it exceeded my expectations in almost every aspect. It is a near perfect smartphone, which is great not just by Nexus standards, but also as a smartphone that can put up a fight and knock out a few flagships from other brands too. What is most surprising is that after big brands such as HTC, LG, and Samsung, the feat was achieved by Huawei on their first attempt at making a Nexus smartphone. If you want a high end flagship smartphone with all the bells and whistles and don't mind the stock Android experience, then you're going to love this phone. It also makes me hopeful about the next generation of Nexus smartphones from Google, and I hope that they give Huawei another chance to make a Nexus smartphone. The Nexus 6P costs Rs 39,999 for the 32GB version and 42,999 for the 64GB version. The Nexus 6P reminds me of the dark side, and like the dark side, it does come with a lot of power, and once you experience it, you might be tempted to get one for yourself. Listed here are the pros and cons of the device. If you like this video, do hit the like button and do subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.